Hey there, it's Vyrrg again, and this time I'll be taking a detailed look at Star's End on the Guardian. I'm sure you'll find some useful information here for any class, but this guide will focus heavily on the intricacies of the Guardian grind. I'll cover how to get to Star's End, the 2 best grind spots, how to cater your add-ons to get insane trash loot, and a new skill rotation that's a bit different from my previous videos that focused on weaker monsters. I'll also brag a little bit and show off my Star's End loot from the 50 hours I've spent at Star's End so far. Before we get to all that, when and why Star's End? I started Star's End with 258 AP and a Tet Kutum, but I highly recommend you get 261 with at least 308 DP or 309 for the next bracket, else the monsters here can burst you down pretty quickly. You should be around this DP with full Tet armor and a Tet Kutum. Maneuver's not recommended, but I survived a few harrowing hours at the beginning, grinding with 297 DP. Once you reach 261, a Guardian can efficiently grind about 2,500 trash an hour, which is 55 million in trash loot. This might not sound high, but combined with the high drop rate of Blackstones and the coveted Black Distortion Earring worth up to 300 million apiece, I've averaged 270 million an hour for the 50 hours I've been grinding here. I usually get an earring drop once every 2 hours, and in 50 hours I've made 13 billion and don't intend to quit grinding anytime soon. Clearly it's a lucrative spot, so let me teach you how to get the most out of it. Star's End is located due west of Caltheon. The main hub where you'll be selling your trash loot and repairing without a tent will be the Caltheon Northwestern Outpost. One of the best things about this grind spot is that you no longer have to pray to RNG and hunt portals to find a grind zone, you just have to find an available server. There are 5 main rotations, as shown on this delightful graphic from Reddit user Oweya0. I'll be referring to them by the names listed here and mainly focused on the 2 I feel work best for the Guardian, Main and Cliff. Main rotation is superior in terms of mob density and secondary pull potential. I'll outline why in a little bit. Cliff rotation is generally less contested but requires more movement and there are less crystal spawns. For the main rotation, I usually leave my horse here where you can pop a tent and it's pretty safe. There are some scattered bears in the area that will kill your horse if you don't leave it in this area. Now we can look at the main rotation itself. The rotation itself is a very simple oval with rocks in the middle, and you'll get 7 pull points and 5 crystals with about 100 kills every cycle. The maximum amount of monsters you can have aggroed on you as a Guardian is 10, and your skills will only deal damage to a maximum of 10 monsters at a time. Therefore, to reach 100 kills in 7 pulls to maximize your trash per hour, you'll have to understand how to pull multiple waves of monsters to the same spot, while staggering when they start running towards you. Before I can explain this concept, let's first look at how Star's End monsters work. These monsters cannot be grabbed, knocked down, floated, or otherwise forced into a grounded state. They can, however, be forced to the ground by killing these unstable star debris. Once they are killed, they knock down all monsters nearby, with a small chance to instantly kill the 10 closest monsters. This guaranteed knockdown is why Guardian is so well suited for this grind spot. The knockdown lasts quite a long time and you'll generally be able to kill everything within 5 to 6 seconds if the monsters are within range of your skill rotation. Now let's go over my technique for staggering pulls to maximize kill time and minimize travel time. I didn't understand this technique until about the last few hours of my grind, where my average trash loot without Agris has jumped from about 4.1 to 4.5k. It centers around delaying the aggro mechanics caused by damage over time abilities. As stated before, you can only have 10 monsters attacking you at a time and taking damage from you at once. You can, however, make sure that there are always 10 monsters attacking you even while some are dying. If you apply a damage over time debuff to monsters while you have a different 10 monsters attacking you, those with the DOT will not become active until the moment you dip below 10 active enemies. As each active enemy dies, a new active enemy will come from the group with the DOT ability applied to them. However, most damage over times only last 9 to 12 seconds. Once the DOT is worn off, the monsters will not automatically aggro you, as your active enemy count falls below 10. Luckily for the Guardian, there's a ranged skill add-on that applies a DOT for 15 seconds with a 16-second cooldown. Absolute Axe Throw. With a 15-second bleeding damage add-on, The axe can be thrown 3 times, with each axe throw activating a new 15-second counter on the bleeding DOT. This means that 3 separate groups can be primed very easily before you activate the crystal and kill your active enemy pull. With high enough AP, the goal is to pull 10 monsters to a crystal, set another few groups of monsters on fire, explode the crystal, kill the grounded monsters as quickly as possible, and then have the burning monsters aggro you before the fire buff runs out. It seems complicated, but mastering this pulling technique can be applied to lots of high-level grind areas where the real money gets made. Let me show you what a full rotation at Star's End looks like. This first pull is usually where the cycle begins in my mind. It consists of the stragglers from the final pull of the cycle and the big group of monsters around the crystal. There's nothing really to it here, besides trying to kill everything in one skill rotation. The next pull is a straight juggernaut hit straight to the crystal, while pulling a 180 to axe throw the 2 large groups at the top of the hill. Once the axe throw is released, it is important to activate the crystal and kill the active enemy group as quickly as possible. I don't even wait for everything to be in range. You want the group on the hill to activate before the debuff runs out. Once you've killed most of the active group, be sure to grab the group near the stone mountain. This group needs to be killed before moving to the next section. If they are not killed, they will count as active but reset just before reaching the next crystal, wasting time and damage that could be applied to new monsters. Next, you want to juggernaut down to the next crystal. I usually use either Amaru's Objurgation or Axe Throw to activate the big guy. You can usually wait a few seconds in guard for the monsters from the hill to be in crystal range before activating. Once activating the crystal, I also use my Z buff in preparation for the next large pull, which will not include a crystal. Once you make sure to aggro everything that spawned late or was not knocked down, I begin the next pull. You want to pull the groups on the right and axe throw the other 2 groups. These will aggro once you kill a few from the first pull. It is important to make sure you kill the westernmost group, as they will reset before reaching the next crystal once aggroed. This pull usually takes a little bit more time, which is why I recommend using your Z buff for this section, as there is no crystal to speed up killing. This next pull is another long one, and having the Z buff last a full minute is helpful. While running at the crystal from down below, you'll want to axe throw the group on the right and in front of you. I missed the axe throw due to the big guy that spawned, but the same concept applies here. Another option is to simply kill the group in the ditch and then pull the east group to the next crystal. This has a waiting period though and isn't quite as efficient. The last crystal pull of the rotation has a large amount of monsters near the crystal. More than 10 monsters will be knocked down, especially if you pull some from the previous pull. I still prime the side group because everything knocked down will die very, very quickly. Once clearing up this group, you can then pull any stragglers to the final kill point. This next point does not have a crystal, and so I'd usually use my Shift E buff if it's off cooldown. It usually might have, 3 seconds from the previous round. Using the Shift E buff here will greatly improve the speed of this final kill. I don't usually prime anything else because I know this is the beginning of the next rotation and there's just not a lot of mob density up here. I know they won't last all the way to the crystal, and there's enough monsters around the crystal for it not to really matter. Now let's talk about the skill rotation. The skills are in the best order to have maximum amount of damage buffs during the big damage moves at the end, which means this order can be used cleverly to activate the crystal during the buffing stage, so that the largest damage comes while the monsters are grounded and take extra damage. I'm going to slow down this pull so we can look at each skill, and I'll tell you why I'm using it in this order. First, we have the 20% attack speed from Glorious Advance, 25 monster damage from Cleansing Flame, 20 AP from Fireborn Rupture, minus 20 DP from God Incinerator, and then just a ton of damage from Searing Fang. I can usually switch around the order of Glorious Advance and Cleansing Flame, but I want to keep these buffs up at all time. It speeds everything up. Alright, at this point I want to show off the 50 hours of grinding worth of data that I've aggregated the whole time I've been at Star's End. I'm not going to do cliff rotation like I had expected to. I'll do it in another video if you guys really want me to, but I feel like showing this main rotation really showed what I was trying to get at with the pulling mechanics that I think are pretty useful, pretty valuable for Guardians to know. Alright, so now let's take a look at my 50 hours of grinding spreadsheet. Alright, now we can look at my Stars End spreadsheet. All of the days with red had Agris buff, so basically right after I started running Stars End, the Agris buff was released. Then I hit 261 Kutum, my trash loot started going pretty high once I figured everything out and was using the main rotation. You can see an average of 270 mil per hour with 292 while using the main rotation. That's why I've used main and cliff, that's what I've got the most data for, and main is pretty much clearly ahead in terms of money per hour. So definitely want to try and get the main rotation if you can find it. Let's see, I hit 265 and that's when I started breaking 4K pretty consistently, getting close to 4K or breaking it at 4K. About at this point or so is where I started to actually finally realize how to maximize my pulling efficiency with damage over time on the axe throw. But yeah, I mean, I'm getting pretty consistently, you know, one every other hour. I had an hour with 3 earring drops, which was kind of insane. I've had a couple of hours with 2. As I've sped up the amount of trash I can do in an hour, so too have I gotten more Black Distortion earrings. So just as you get more comfortable with this, you'll start to get more and more money. Like, I will never see another 78 mil hour. That just isn't gonna happen. Even let's see, off Agris, you know, breaking at least 100 mil with the trash loot. So yeah, I mean, I've got the blue loot scroll because you want to maximize the amount of time you can be getting these earrings. The trash loot isn't really the money maker here. It doesn't really matter all that much. 10% ecology, 4% pet from that Snow Fox, Camisylvia Blessing, and then the last 4 hours were with the 20% drop rate, 24-hour buff from Dora and Morgrim. I'm going to have 48 total hours, so the next 50 hours should be even better. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something, hope you enjoyed it, hope it was interesting. Thank you again for your support. Have a great day. See you in the next one.